If you see BioShock as just a political allegory, you're only scratching the surface. The real story is more personal, more intimate. It's about what it means to raise, control, or lose a child. Whether it's Jack and Ryan, Subject Delta and Eleanor, or Booker and Elizabeth, the themes of parenthood are persistent across all three games, whilst the political message of each of them vary between installments. But we can't discuss BioShock and parenthood without its most iconic example, Big Daddies and Little Sisters. This example is oddly ironic, as while the human examples I listed earlier all have some kind of tragic or grotesque spin on their relationship, the daddies and sisters relationship is one of love and affection, though like all things in Rapture, it's a fabrication. Big Daddies are modified humans who were horrifically experimented on and turned into these hulking brutes, being brainwashed into protecting the Little Sisters, who themselves are victims of human experimentation and turned into walking sacks of Adam. Yet despite the intense psychological torture and physical mutilation these two innocent individuals go through, their manufactured bond of caregiver and child is disturbingly pure. Neither one of them are fully aware that it's a fabrication and any true sense of humanity has been stripped away from them. These two are seemingly the only happy people in Rapture, acting oblivious to the apocalyptic setting they're both trapped in. The Little Sisters experience the sunken city with a whimsical wonder, managing to find all sorts of joy in the dilapidated metropolis. And the daddies seem more than content with protecting that innocence at any and all costs. In fact, even the time we spend inside a Big Daddy as Subject Delta gives the impression that their sole drive is to protect their sisters and ensure their happiness, and the sisters are undoubtedly happy with their protectors as they refer to them with affectionate nicknames like Mr. Bubbles. As disturbing as their relationship is in reality, in their drug-addled haze, they're both living their happiest lives, and the irony of that relationship is that it's the happiest father-child relationship in the trilogy. There's something heartbreaking about the line, "A man chooses, a slave obeys," less about the words themselves, but the context in which they're said, from a father to a son. Up until this confrontation, Andrew Ryan is presented as a spirited and passionate man who will go to unbelievable lengths and unfathomable depths to achieve his vision. But in referring to his son as a slave, it solidifies him as a cold, unfeeling machine, with no empathy or respect for anything in the world except his own twisted ideals. An ironic reversal to the cyborgs patrolling his empire, whose only desire is to protect and uplift their children. Even when Jack slays his father and believes he's escaped the destructive experience of parental abuse, Fontaine turns around and betrays him, but the game explicitly goes out of its way to portray Frank as a father figure to Jack. Quote, "You are my ace in the hole, but you are also the closest thing I ever had to a son." This deliberately puts Jack right back in the position of a child manipulated by their father, showcasing how Jack has been betrayed by both men who take on a parental role in his life. On the surface, the relationship between Frank and Jack is pure, but down in Rapture, it's sick and twisted. A stark contrast to the Guardians of Rapture, whose relationship is disturbing from an outsider's perspective, but to them, a wholesome bond of father and daughter. But let's move on into BioShock Infinite, where we take on the role of the parent rather than the child. Similarly to BioShock 1, the game has two fathers who both fail their children in different ways. Booker abandons his daughter for money, whilst Comstock enslaves that same daughter for power. An eerie parallel to Ryan's abandonment of Jack and Fontaine's enslavement of him. But Booker seeks redemption for this action, traveling to the Skyward City to reclaim that which he threw away. But this too has an ironic twist, as the only reason Booker exists in the first place is because he refused redemption at Wounded Knee, by rejecting the baptism and thus becoming Booker DeWitt. In this scenario, Booker is Ryan, throwing away his chance at redemption and later his family for his own greed and apathy, while Comstock covets his child so he can manipulate her into making himself more powerful, just as Fontaine did. In this sense, Elizabeth becomes a battleground between her two fathers, as both try and win her over to their side, treating her as an object rather than a person. I'm definitely not saying the game is misogynistic, Hell, Elizabeth is one of the most powerful and competent female characters in gaming, but Elizabeth is, for all intents and purposes, a mechanic within the gameplay of BioShock Infinite, rather than a character. In combat, she's capable of reviving you and giving you ammunition. What's more, Booker can command her to open rifts to assist him. But the nail in the coffin is that she can't die, making her a mechanic rather than a companion. This is Booker treating her like a tool, as the game makes her a mechanic for the player to utilize rather than as a person to protect. He doesn't realize this, but he's treating her like a tool rather than as a companion, until she becomes omnipotent and takes full control of the narrative away from Booker. This is the moment when she breaks free of both of her fathers, and once and for all ends the abusive parenting that has plagued her life, showing how BioShock's core theme is around the nature of children, those who are supposed to protect them, and how they can ultimately fail. For more essays that combine immersive sims and bad parenting, here's one about the nature of revenge and Dishonored in The Last of Us 2, and I'll be back in 2 days.